at some places below every section and at some places below every subsection, you have an analysis or an explanation printed in a different font size, in a different font size, in a different font style. What I've tried to do is that the explanation that we would generally have in the classroom, I have tried to put it up in a concise form just below the point. So if it is subsection 1 being explained, so the whole subsection 1 has been analyzed in simple terms, it has been put up. And so if you read that even after some time gap, if you go back and read the whole thing, read the section or the subsection and read the analysis, things will be very clear. For charitable trusts and religious trusts, their incomes are exempt under section 11. The range of sections that you have here are 11, 12, 12A, 12AA, and 13. And in addition to that, you have section 115 BBC. 115 BBC is, as the number is 115, it is a tax rate section. So primarily, all the provisions of exemptions are contained in section 11 to section number 13. How much is exempt? How much will be taxable? What exactly are the conditions that you need to satisfy? All of that is put up in section 11 to section 13. Basically, the intention is that since you are a trust or an institution who is operating for charity or who is operating for promoting a particular religion, you are not involved in any commercial activity. Your intention is that you are going to use the income that you get for charitable activities. So we are not going to tax you on this income because you are using it for charity, which means that there is an exemption given to the trust, but the trust will get the exemption if the income is utilized for charitable activities. This also means that this can become a tool for various people to convert their black money into white and take the exemption. So these sections have tried to ensure that such type of things don't happen. A lot of requirements that you need to fulfill, a lot of conditions that you need to fulfill to be able to get your exemption. If whatever income you get, basically mainly the income from a charitable trust, mainly the income of a charitable trust will be in the form of donations. Then it could have had some savings made and the savings would have been invested in banks, fixed deposits, various shares, debentures, and that would give income. So whatever income is received, there is a standard exemption that is allowed at the rate of 15%. 15% of this income is exempt. You don't need to spend this for charitable activities. It's a standard exemption given. So that means you are now left out with the balance 85%. 85% of the income. Out of this, whatever income is actually spent for charitable activities, for religious activities, section calls it as actually applied. So the amount which is actually applied for charitable or religious activities, it's not chargeable to tax. It's like I've got the income, I've used it for charity, so reduce that from the 85% income. Suppose I have not actually applied the income, that means I've not actually spent the income. Then an option is given to me that it is deemed to be applied. Why did I not spend the income? Two reasons possible. One, I did not receive it and therefore I did not spend it. So there was some income which was taken on accrual basis, but I had not received it and therefore I didn't get a chance to spend it. Or I did not spend it for any other reason. Now there are conditions prescribed that you are talking about the current year, say previous year 1920. Income is not applied actually because it is not received. Then it will be deemed that this amount is applied and exemption will be given to you in the current year. But the future year, when you receive the income, you have to actually spend that income for charitable purposes. And in the year after the year of receipt, you are allowed to spend that income. That means that if I am talking about previous year 1920 and income is not actually applied because it is not received, then exemption of this income is allowed in previous year 1920 by assuming that yes, it is applied in 1920. But a corresponding responsibility that is attached is that in the year of receipt and in the next year meaning the year after the year of receipt, you will have to actually apply this income. Of course, it goes without saying that this amount which is actually applied cannot be treated as exempt of that future year. So for instance, if the year of receipt is previous year 21-22 and the next year therefore is 22-23, I have received the income in 21-22 and I'm spending it in 21-22. Then this amount spent in 21-22 cannot be taken as exemption of 21-22 because it actually belongs to the year 1920. Then you have to separately spend the income of 21-22 to claim exemption in 21-22. This income that you are receiving in financial year 21-22 is actually income of the year 1920. Accrual basis pay it was taken in 1920. I did not spend it because I did not receive the money. Still government gave me the exemption in 1920. And now when I receive it in 21-22, I am told, okay, spend the money this year, spend the money in the next year, but don't treat it as exemption of those years. Or the second situation is that it is not actually applied for any other reason. मतलब I have received it, but मैंने उसको spend नहीं किया. I did not spend the money. Then also exemption is allowed, deemed that exemption will be given to you. But in the next year, you have to spend this income for charitable activities. And then your exemption of the year 1920 will remain valid. What I'm trying to explain is that after a standard exemption of 15%, for the balance 85%, there are two options available. One is you actually spend the money for charitable activities and take the exemption. Second is you have not actually spent it, but it is assumed that you have spent it. So exemption is given to you in the current year only. Achha, the third option that is possible is that you did not actually spend it, you did not actually apply it because you wanted to accumulate this income, and you have accumulated this income for future usage, future application. So income of the current year, not applied, not spent in the current year, maybe because you have a long-term expenditure coming up for which you need the income. And so what you're doing is you're not spending it in the current year, you are setting aside that money, saying that I am going to spend this money. I will require this money for my next 3 years of expenses, for my next 4 years of expenses. Maybe I am a charitable organization who is constructing a school or is constructing a hospital, and I need that money for construction. So it's going to take a long time in future. So I am going to keep my current year's income, not spend it. Now, the moment I don't spend it, income becomes taxable. But section says, okay, if you decide to accumulate it for future application, we will give an exemption in the current year. We'll give you the exemption in the current year itself. But then for which you have to follow some conditions, you have to follow some formalities. As in, you have to submit it in writing to the assessing officer that you are accumulating this income for this purpose. Whatever amount has been accumulated has to be compulsorily, mandatorily spent in the next 5 years. Your accumulation cannot go beyond 5 years. And till the time you have accumulated it, you cannot keep the money with yourself. Otherwise, there is a temptation that the charitable trust might take the exemption and then start misusing the money. So you are expected to invest this money as per section 11 subsection 5. Whatever I'm discussing right now, this is section 11 subsection 1. This is the basic introduction. I mean, this is the first subsection, the base of the chapter, or the most important thing from which things will emerge is subsection 1 of section 11. If you'll see the drafting, it is quite complicated. It's a lengthy subsection. Accumulated for future application, this is allowed in 11 subsection 2, which says that, okay, you've not used it in the current year, still go ahead, take the exemption in the current year. Set it aside for future usage. The future has to be maximum 5 years only. And during that period, you have to invest into specified modes that are selected, specified by 11 subsection 5. Now, after all of this, what remains, this is the total income. In simple terms, this is the income which is taxable. Finally, the charitable trust will pay tax on this total income. Of course, this is a basic structure. This is a very basic structure. Now, some extra things to learn. If, as a charitable trust, or as a religious trust.
So sorry to interrupt, but which section are we referring in this? Like, is it the general provision that we are discussing overall?
I'm kind of discussing everything on an overall basis. So I am not sticking to one particular subsection. I'll keep on moving from one subsection to another. What I'll do is at the end of our session, all this that I'm scribbling on the white screen, I'll convert this into a PDF and send it to you guys. And so what will then happen is that this is identical to what I used to write on the board and you used to copy in the notebook.
Right.
And then along with this, after we finish our session, I'll make some small modifications where I write down what subsection number is this, what page number you'll find it. So then correlating it will be easier for you. Since many of you have not studied this very recently, so before I start the pending thing, I'm just giving a quick view. But a quick view is also taking up quite a lot of time for a very simple reason that the nature of the topic is complicated. If as a charitable trust or as a religious trust, any person gives you a donation and the donation is with a specific direction that this donation will be part of the corpus of the trust. The share capital, something similar to share capital, something as a permanent capital, the main capital of the trust. Donation received by a charitable or a religious trust with a specific direction from the donor that you will not use this money as your revenue income. It is your capital income. You will treat it as corpus. you can invest this money and subsequently derive revenue income from it and use that for day-to-day operations. But this is the main capital of the trust. And so now what's happening is that for this section 11 subsection 1 clause B says that this is exempt. This stuff that we did, this is 11 subsection 1 clause A, and then all the explanations attached to it. Corpus donations, in simple terms, corpus donations which are meant to be part of the corpus, they are capital receipt, they are a capital nature of income, and they are exempt. You're not going to pay tax, you are not going to pay, they are exempt fully, so you are not covering it in this working standard 15%, balance 85%, nothing doing, ye pura exempt hai. This is part of the corpus, you will get an exemption, you don't need to spend or actually apply this income, this is your permanent capital. Okay guys, yahan tak समझा? वो चैट बॉक्स में yes no लिखते जाओ. ठीक है. अब we've discussed 11.1, 11.2, 11.5 is a place where you got to invest the funds. Acha, then you have section 12A and section 12AA, which is basically talking about registration of this trust with the Commissioner of Income Tax. A charitable trust or religious trust will get an exemption only if it is registered. You have to make an application for registration to the commissioner. He has to pass an order within 6 months, either allowing you your registration or denying the registration. If he does not pass any order within 6 months, it means it is an automatic registration granted to you. Once registration has been given, it means section 11 exemption is available to you. For this, you have to follow certain procedure. You have to submit whatever documents that are needed. A recent amendment as per Finance Act 2019 is yeah. You can see the PDF on the screen, right? The amendment is that certain other laws, certain other acts have to be complied with by the trust. Only then exemption, only then the registration will be given. So the procedure says that the commissioner, once he receives an application for registration, he will call for whatever documents he wants, ask various questions possible, and he will call for documents which, point number 2, the compliance of such requirements of any other law for the time being in force by the trust or the institution as are material for the purpose of achieving its objects. This was not there up to the last year. Up to the last year, it was only that the commissioner will call for documents to satisfy that the trust is created for genuine objectives. That thing will still remain, but he will also ask for documents which help to prove that if some other law is needed to be followed so that you can achieve your objective, are you actually satisfying the requirements of that other law? He'll pass an order in writing, either registering or refusing to register. That opportunity of being heard, principles of natural justice, you cannot pass a one-sided order. You before, even if you do not register, if you deny registration, you have to give an opportunity to the trust. There is something like if a registration is already granted, the trust is already registered, and subsequently the commissioner observes that the activities of trust are such that they do not comply, they are not genuine, they do not comply with the legal requirements, then it can cancel your registration also. Even cancellation of registration is allowed. So either it will never allow you the registration on your application, it will reject it, or it has given you the registration and then it finds out that something fishy is going on, then it will cancel the registration. So these two sections, 12A and 12AA, they're basically dealing with registration. And this is that small amendment that other law requirements also have to be checked whether they are complied or not. Section 13. Now the heading of section 13 says that section 11 and section 12 will not apply in certain situations. In simple terms, section 13 is highlighting all the situations where exemption is not available. No exemption, it means the income will become taxable. Now, it has about 8 subsections. First subsection, 13 subsection 1, gets divided into 4 clauses. You'll find this on page number 17. 13 subsection 1 clause A. अब ये क्या है? It is very simple. It's talking about a situation where it is a charitable trust or a religious trust. Clause A. But it is working for private religious purposes. So the general public is not getting the benefit. No benefit given to the general public. It is working for private purposes. Your concept of charity cannot be attached to a concept of religion. So if it's a charitable trust, it has to spend the money for charitable activities irrespective of the religion. And if it is found out that the money is not spent for charitable purposes, but it is spent for the benefit of a particular private religious purpose, then exemption will be denied. If it is a religious trust, then it has to work for all the persons of that religion. It cannot work for that religion, few individuals or few persons. If such a situation is found, exemption is not allowed. Similarly, 13.1 clause number B. 13.1 clause B specifically covers only a charitable trust. If you read clause A, it just says a trust. Any part of the income from the property held under a trust for a private religious purpose, which does not go for the benefit of public. But point B says a trust for charitable purpose. And such a charitable trust is using the money for the benefit of a particular religion. So I am running a hospital on charity basis. A charitable organization is running a hospital, but the treatment is provided only to people of a particular religion. Then truly speaking, it is not a charitable organization. Then you cannot say that the income that I am spending for treatment of patients, that should be exempt for me, because you are not treating patients, generally speaking, you are treating patients of a particular religion. You are using the income in a particular religious purpose, although you are a charitable trust. So exemption nahi milega. 13.1c. अब 13.1c बोलता है that in 13 subsection 3, we have highlighted certain persons. If the income is used for the benefit of those persons, then exemption is not allowed. अब ये 13 subsection 3 has multiple places of application. ये थोड़ा सा important है, easy है but important है. Somebody who is the author of the trust or the founder of the trust, मतलब जिसने वो trust float किया है, that person is selected in 13 subsection 3. Somebody who is the manager or the trustee, this is one of the selected persons. If the author, the founder, the manager or trustee, if this is a HUF, then a member of this HUF is also treated as a specified person, a person selected under 13(3). If there is any person who has made contributions, who has made donations to the trust, which is in excess of 50,000, and this 50,000 is calculated as up to the end of the previous year. It is not during the previous year, it is up to the end of previous year. Meaning if I am talking about previous year 1920, then up to 31st March 2020, whatever this person has contributed to that trust, that person's contribution exceeds 50,000. What I'm trying to say is, do not count his contributions on a yearly basis. These contributions will be all his total contributions over a number of years. तो ऐसा हो सकता है that let's say there is a trust in which, say, Kavish is on a regular basis donating money. On a yearly basis, he keeps on donating. At times it is 10,000, at times it is 14,000, at times it is 20,000. So there will come a time where if you total up the donations given by Kavish till 31st March 2020, it exceeds 50,000. Now, practically what the lawmakers are thinking is, okay, now the trust also is aware that every year we keep on getting donations from Kavish. So now Kavish will be very easily identifiable that, okay, he is one of our major donors. And now what can happen is that because Kavish is donating money like this regularly and the amount has exceeded 50,000, directly or indirectly, he will start influencing the trust. He'll start exercising some influence on the trust. So that then a situation may arise where Kavish, who has already donated, say 85,000, calls up the trust and says that I want so and so benefit, and please use the income of the trust in this manner. And the trust will be obligated or obliged because Kavish is a regular donor. So now the money which is meant for the general public will indirectly benefit Kavish. Kavish is not the author, Kavish is not the trustee, but he's an outsider who is donating money, and because of his continuous donation, his amount exceeds 50,000. So now he can influence the trust. This type of a person is covered in section 13 subsection 3. Then,
सर
हाँ जी बोलो
सर, ये 50,000 एग्जांपल है कि कोई सेक्शन में लिखा है? मतलब
नहीं, क्लॉज बी में लिखा है भाई। ये देख
पेज नंबर सर,
बोल दिखाता हूँ ना, ये देख लेना, स्क्रीन पे ही देख ले। 13 subsection 3, ये देख। Point A, the author or the founder. Point B, a person who has made substantial contribution to the trust. Any person whose total contribution up to the end of the relevant previous year exceeds 50,000. If the author, founder, person is a HUF, तो member, trustee or manager. Point D, relative of any such author, founder, person, member, trustee. तो in सबके relatives are also covered in section 13(3).
और सर ये 50,000 में तो पर्सन मतलब कोई भी कवर हो गया ना, मतलब वो ऑथर, फाउंडर, मैनेजर, वो तो ऐसे भी हुआ तो वो तो होगा ही, प्लस
हाँ,
उसके कोई भी 50,000 दिया तो वो भी कवर हो जाएगा, ऐसा ना?
हाँ। And point E, any concern in which any of the persons mentioned in A, B, C, CC and D has substantial interest. Definition of relative is a bit different here as compared to section number 56. It is almost on the lines of section 56, but yes, there is a difference. At the end of section 13, that is page number 21, you will find the definition of relative. There is a slight difference in the definition of relative. Spouse is covered, brother sister is covered, brother sister of the spouse is covered. Any lineal ascendant or descendant of the individual, father, grandfather, any lineal ascendant descendant of the spouse of the individual, father-in-law, spouse of the person referred to in clause 2, clause 3, clause 4, clause 5. This is identical to what we've done in IFRS gift received wala provision. Any lineal descendant of a brother or sister of either the individual or spouse of the individual. ये एक extra point है. So if I am the author of a trust and say Rishav is the trustee, so we are covered in section 13.3. Our relatives are also covered. Now Rishav's brother's lineal descendant, my sister's lineal descendant is also covered as a relative here. This is the only extra point as compared to that IFO solid definition.
But sir, lineal descendant of you and your sister would be same, right?
Kavish?
मेरे को भी नहीं समझा सर lineal descendant का मतलब.
अरे I think lineal descendant is technically जैसे सर की बहन का बेटा या बेटी.
Exactly.
Like their children, their extended family.
Me and my sister are lineal descendants of my dad. But my lineal descendant and sister's lineal descendant तो अलग होगा ना.
हाँ हाँ समझा सर समझा.
Ascendant same होगा, descendant.
Feel आ गया मेरे को. कविश.
बराबर है.
मतलब कविश is actively involved in the lecture. बराबर सुन रहा है, समझ रहा है, सोच रहा है. Now कविश will feel कि हाँ अभी DT का लेक्चर हो रहा है.
हाँ सर, कर दो. वीडियो लेक्चर में फील ही नहीं आता.
वीडियो लेक्चर्स में फील ही नहीं आता है. चाइना साला नहीं, सब चाइना की वजह से हुआ.
हाँ सर, सच्ची. कविश रुइन हो गया.
कविश DT में फेल होगा तो अभी एटलीस्ट मुझे गाली नहीं देगा.
ऐसा मत बोलो. ऐसा मत बोलो. फेल तो नहीं हूँ.
फेल होना क्यों है सर? एटलीस्ट ग्रुप 2 में वापस इतना अमेंडमेंट कौन पढ़ेंगे?
अरे
मेरे को ग्रुप 2 फेल नहीं होना, ग्रुप 2 वर्क.
अच्छा ग्रुप 1 चलेगा.
हाँ वो चलेगा एक बार.
सच में ग्रुप
फेल ही क्यों होना? हम लोग क्यों बातें कर रहे हैं फेल होने की?
Coming back. 13 subsection 1 clause D.
सर कुछ मजे वाला नहीं है चैप्टर में, कुछ मजेदार होना चाहिए ना.
ये चैप्टर में एक्चुअली स्पीकिंग द मजेदार थिंग, interesting thing is 11 subsection 1. If you look at the first video of this chapter, you'll realize that that is too goddamn interesting. After that, it becomes equally boring for the student and for the professor to teach the balance subject. I mean the balance chapter. And maybe 115 BBC may be a bit interesting. Baki section 13 तो kind of is yes boring.
Procedure लग रहा है मेरे को तो पूरा.
हाँ, yes. It's basically if these things happen, exemption will not be allowed. So you got to remember 13 subsection 1 clause D. This is saying that if you accumulate that income, ये वाला, ये, if you accumulate the income for future application, then as and when you need the money, you will use it. But till that time, you have to invest the money into certain specific places. So those specified modes of investment. And where are they specified? They are specified in section 11 subsection 5. Now, if this is not done, so if you do not invest the money in these places, then your section 11 exemption is gone. Or if you've invested the money, but the investment matures and you have to reinvest it, you have to keep it invested for 5 years. Accumulation period is 5 years. So your investment is maturing and you will have to reinvest it. If you do not reinvest it in those specified places, then exemption is gone.
जस्ट लाइक 54 वाला जो चैप्टर था जहाँ पे हम लोगों को अपने प्रोसीड्स को इन्वेस्ट करना था, वैसे ही बट स्पेसिफिक पर्पस डिफाइन कर दिया है इसमें।
हाँ, करेक्ट करेक्ट करेक्ट। अच्छा, अब ये था तुम्हारा, एक सेकेंड, this is your 13 subsection 1. 13 subsection 3 is what we've done, and 2 is saying that if you use the income for those persons specified in 13.3, exemption is not allowed. This is the basic concept. In subsection 2, certain transactions are highlighted. If those transactions happen, then it will be deemed that the income was used for the benefit of those specified persons. Meaning, as you would have observed, okay, drafting of the law is complicated. You'll have to go one place to another. 13.1 says if you use the income for the benefit of persons mentioned in 13.3, exemption is not allowed. Where are these persons mentioned? 13.3. And 13.2 says that these transactions will be deemed, if they happen, they will be deemed that income has been used for the benefit of 13.3. That automatically means that exemption is not allowed. Now, यहाँ पे the concept is, for your notes purposes मैं इसको draw करके दे दूंगा as one party to another the way I draw. अभी reading कर लो, एकदम simple है. If the trust gives a loan, if some income of the trust is lent out, मतलब loan is given to those persons and nothing is taken as mortgage or as security, मतलब a security free loan is given, or something is taken as security but it is inadequate as compared to market rate, then it means you are using your income for the benefit of that specified person. Try and keep the specified person in your mind, and then automatically you'll be able to, on your own, imagine examples. The person who has created the trust, the author, the trustee, any concern who has substantial interest, any relative of these persons. So it's like something, okay, I created a trust earned income, and now I am only taking that income as loan, and I'm not giving any asset as security. Or if I'm giving an asset as security, then the market value of my asset is inadequate as compared to the loan that I've taken. The same point also says that loan is taken, but it is interest free, or it's at a rate of interest lower than the market rate. Then it means that what trust ka income is being used for the benefit of this specified person. So I'm misusing my position and trying to enjoy the income of the trust, then exemption will not be allowed. ये समझा? Intent of that point, intention समझ पड़ा? Point B, land, building or other property of the trust is or continues to be made available for the use of those specified persons for any period during the year without charging adequate rent or compensation. Property of the trust given on rent, but lesser rent is charged, or given for use, no rent is charged. किसको दिया? वो specified person को. So he is using his position in the trust and trying to take advantage. This time the advantage taken is in the form of property. Point C, salary is paid, remuneration is paid, but it is way more than the market rate. So trustee is drawing salary, but जो market rate होना चाहिए, जो reasonable amount pay होना चाहिए, उससे कहीं ज्यादा pay हो रहा है. That means as a trust, you keep on taking money from general public in the form of donations. And then as a trustee, you say, I am managing it, so I will withdraw salary, but I take salary more than needed. So that means ये मेरा private benefit हो गया. Point D, if the services of the trust or institution are made available to those specified persons without adequate remuneration or other compensation. Again, you'll observe, okay, trust is giving some services to the specified person, but either no remuneration is received by the trust, or what is received is much less. That means trust के services का advantage लिया जा रहा है, some benefit, some undue advantage is being taken. If any share, now E and F are, E point and F point, you can study them together, reverse transactions है. If any share, security or other property is purchased on behalf of the trust from those specified persons, then the trust has paid more consideration. So trust is supposed to invest money. Now some share is sold by this author of the trust, a trustee, and it is sold at more than the market rate. In section 11 subsection 5, you are supposed to save the money, invest the money, the income that you've accumulated. One of the places that you will invest the money is shares of a public company. Now this author is the owner of shares of public company. He sells his shares to the trust and he sells it way more than the market value. So income of the trust is indirectly going to those specified person, or vice versa. If the share, security or other property is sold by the trust to the specified person, now the sale proceeds received by the trust are much lesser than the market value. So trust got the donation, trust invested the money into shares on its own independently, invested in shares of a public limited company. Then the shares are sold to those specified persons and much lesser than the market rate. That means benefit was given indirectly in the form of shares to that specified person. And the last one, not last one exactly, if income or property is diverted during the previous year in favor of any person referred to in subsection 3, this will apply only if the amount of income diverted is more than 1000. The proviso attached is that this clause will not apply if it is less than equal to 1000. So as a trust, I was supposed to receive some donation, and I tell that donor कि काम करो ना, deposit it into the author's bank account, trustee's bank account. ये trustee है, इसके wife के account में deposit कर दो. Now that means income belonging to the trust, donation belonging to the trust is diverted to the specified person. Point H. If funds of the trust or the institution are invested or continue to remain invested for any period during the previous year in any concern in which any person has a substantial interest. So the person who is the trustee is, let's say, a partner in the firm. And in that firm, this trustee has substantial interest. So now this trust is giving a loan to the firm. That means money of the trust, income of the trust is indirectly being diverted to that trustee. He is not taking it in his own bank account. He is basically taking it in a firm where he has substantial interest. Combining everything. How did we start our discussion? What were we studying? 13 subsection 1 says that if income directly or indirectly is used for the benefit of persons specified in 13.3, exemption under 11 will not apply. 13.3 gives me a list of those specified persons. And 13.2 says that if these transactions happen, it will be deemed that the income was used for the benefit of the specified persons. Automatically, such income will not be subject to exemption. It means it will become taxable. यहाँ तक समझा? Sure? Okay. Up 13.4 gives a small relaxation. ये पूरे concept में we have understood one thing, that directly or indirectly, if the specified person gets some advantage, gets some income of the trust, then exemption is not allowed. The benefit given is that suppose this trust has invested, say, rupees 3 lakhs. Where is the investment made? This investment is made in a company. And in this company, the author of the trust owns 30% shares. Owning 30% shares means the author has substantial interest. Now we've seen that if the trust is investing the money in a concern where the specified person has substantial interest, then exemption under section 11 will not be allowed. ये देखो. Point number H. If any funds of the trust are invested or they continue to remain invested for any period during the previous year in any concern in which any person referred to in subsection 3 has a substantial interest. So my basic conclusion is that section 11 should not apply. But अब subsection 4 is giving you a small relief. Relief क्या दिया? बोला ये जो amount invested है ना, the amount invested is less than or equal to, is less than or equal to 5% of the total capital of that concern. Part of subsection 4. Notwithstanding anything contained in clause C of subsection 1. Ye. Clause C of subsection 1 says that if you use the income for the benefit of certain persons, exemption will not be allowed. Notwithstanding anything contained in clause C of subsection 1, but without prejudice to the provisions contained in clause D of that subsection. Clause D of that subsection is that you must invest it into 11 subsection 5. That should not be badly affected. That you have to satisfy. But clause C override karke. In a case where the aggregate of the funds of the trust or institution invested in a concern in which any person referred to in subsection 3 has a substantial interest does not exceed 5% of the capital of that concern. The exemption under section 11 or 12 shall not be denied in relation to any income other than the income arising to the trust or institution from such investment, by reason only that the funds of the trust or institution have been invested in a concern in which such person has substantial interest. If the amount invested is less than or equal to 5% of the total capital. Now we are aware that if you invest money, exemption is not allowed. But exemption is not allowed under section 11. This is what is written in 13.1. Now 13.4 clarifies that only income from such investment will be taxable. Other incomes of the trust, section 11 exemption will be allowed. Dekho. Another way to understand. In fact, it will be better if you read it like this. 13 subsection 1. Nothing contained in section 11 shall operate so as to exclude from the total income of the previous year of the person in receipt thereof A, B, C, D. So, what is 13.1 telling you? That nothing contained in section 11 shall apply. If A, B, C or D happens, what is C? Income of the trust is used directly or indirectly for the benefit of those specified persons. So 13.1 is saying that section 11 as a whole, section 11 as a whole will not apply. Okay, understood. 13.2 is saying, 13.2, last point number H is saying that if the funds of the trust are invested into a concern where the specified person has substantial interest, then it will be assumed that the income is for the benefit of the specified persons. Meaning, if you understand it technically, if 13.2H is satisfied, then it automatically means that 13.1C is attracted. पहले तो इतना ऑब्जर्व करो. If 13.2H is satisfied, then 13.1C gets attracted. जिसका मीनिंग होता है that nothing in section 11 shall apply. जिसका simplified version will mean that exemption is not available. But now 13.4 is talking realistically. 13.4 is saying, why should I snatch away the exemption for other incomes of the trust in a situation where trust ka amount invested is less than equal to 5% of the total capital of that concern. So this company, let's say, has share capital worth 1 crore. So 5% of 1 crore, 5 lakhs. But the trust has invested 3 lakh rupees. Let us say company hai na, trust has invested 3 lakhs in the form of debentures. It could be in the form of shares also. Huh? मैं debenture का example ले रहा हूँ so that interest income is easily understood. Company will pay interest to the trust. ये 3 lakh rupees के debenture पे जितना भी interest income आया. Now what we are thinking is a company having a total share capital of 1 crore. The author of the trust, the one who has created the trust, he has substantial interest in the company. But his trust is investing money into the company which is less than 5% of the total capital. So this is such a small investment. Then why should we snatch away the entire exemption? Section 11 shall not apply. Matlab no exemption shall be allowed. That is a bit harsh. So we are saying that yes, exemption will not be allowed, but only for that income which arises due to such investment. So other incomes, donation mila from various outsiders, वो सब exemption मिलेगा. If a trust is receiving donation from 25 people and is using the money for charitable purposes or saying that it is deemed to be applied or it is accumulated, then all those exemptions will be allowed. Exemption will not be allowed only for that 3 lakh rupees पे जो interest income derive होता है. ये clear? Which will also mean, if you think about the other side of the coin, when does subsection 4 apply? For subsection 4 to apply, I must ensure that the amount invested is less than equal to 5%. Now, what if I make this debenture as, say, 13 lakhs?
More than 5% हो जाएगा.
तो more than 5% हुआ. तो subsection 4 का relief will not be available.
Yeah.
Then you will apply subsection 1 and you will disallow the exemption for all the incomes.
Section 11 and 12 not applicable.
No exemption will be allowed, not only for the interest on these debentures, but also for other incomes. And exemption will not be allowed only. So in a way, you are trying to tell the trust that if you want to invest money, do not invest money into a concern where the specified person has substantial interest. Step number 1, don't invest the money there. Step 2, supposing you want to invest the money there, then please ensure that your amount invested is less than equal to 5% of the total capital, then all your other incomes will be exempt. Only that investment related income will be taxable. But if you do not take care of this threshold 5%, then everything will become taxable for you. Are we clear?
सर तो फिर सर ये सेक्शन से बेनिफिट क्या हो रहा है, मतलब गवर्नमेंट को?
गवर्नमेंट को बेनिफिट ये हो रहा है that it is ensuring that the money or the income of the trust is not being invested at places where those specified persons have substantial interest. Okay, imagine you form a trust. You take donations from public. You take these donations and get it invested into a company where you have substantial interest.
इनडायरेक्टली मेरा बेनिफिट होगा, मतलब
इनडायरेक्टली आपका बेनिफिट हुआ. परफेक्ट. सो
पब्लिक एट लार्ज का बेनिफिट नहीं हो रहा है.
हाँ, इनफैक्ट अ बेटर वे ऑफ थिंकिंग इज, हाँ, पब्लिक एट लार्ज का बेनिफिट तो डेफिनेटली नहीं हो रहा है, बट यू आर यूजिंग द पब्लिक्स मनी फॉर योर बिजनेस एक्टिविटी. Now the place where you have substantial interest, it is getting investment from the trust. This money will be used by that company, in my example the company, for business purposes. So you who can control the company and you who has formed the trust, using the trust as a tool, you are getting money, transferring the money in the form of investment into that company, using it for your business, and still from the trust point of view you are saying कि भाई मुझे exemption दे दो. ये exemption नहीं मिलेगा.
एंड सर ये जो ट्रस्ट है ये नॉन रेजिडेंट इंडिविजुअल या कंसर्न हो सकता है क्या? मतलब इंडिया में आके वो ट्रस्ट का रिकॉग्निशन उनको मिल सकता है क्या? मतलब अगर वो चैरिटेबल काम कर रहे हैं तो उनको मिलेगा नॉन रेजिडेंट को भी?
दे विल. अच्छा एक मिनट, ट्रस्ट इज अ सेपरेट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन.
हाँ मैं समझा वो.
हाँ
तो मतलब ऐसा तो नहीं है ना कि खाली इंडियन होगा तो ही रेजिडेंट होगा तो ही ट्रस्ट बन सकता है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है.
No. मतलब you are saying author of the trust who is creating the trust can be a resident or non-resident. हाँ, he can be anyone. Can be anyone. There is no हाँ. Perfect. हाँ. Any other doubt?
So more than 5% हुआ तो?
If it's more than 5%, then this relief given under subsection 4 will not be applicable. Then income of the trust from that investment and every other income of the trust, everything will be taxable. मतलब taxable as income.
Okay.
And you have to pay income tax on it. See, what happens is section 11 में, अच्छा, better. I'll make you read one thing and then it will be more clear. एक second. हाँ, ये देखो. Tax rates for charitable or religious trust or institution. Anonymous donations, section 115 BBC, we are yet to do that. उसका tax rate अलग है. Incomes covered under 13(1)(a) to 13(1)(d). That's what we are doing. Maximum marginal rate. Other incomes, slab rate applicable to an individual. मतलब, see, ये जो फाइनल आंसर आया ना, टोटल इनकम, ये दिस इज चार्जेबल टू टैक्स. जैसे इफ यू रिमेंबर अबाउट अपना इंडिविजुअल का कंप्यूटेशन, 5 हेड्स का टोटल इज ग्रॉस टोटल इनकम माइनस चैप्टर 6(8) डिडक्शन, द बैलेंस इज कॉल्ड टोटल इनकम. उसी तरीके से now here we don't have classification into 5 heads, but we are saying that ये अपना after reducing the exemptions ये total income है. Now if this total income is my normal total income, तो slab rates will apply. But if this total income includes any income covered by 13(1)(a) to 13(1)(d), तो that those amounts will be separately added here और उस पे मैक्सिमम मार्जिनल रेट ऑफ टैक्स लग जाएगा.
ओके,
श्योर? मतलब if the amount invested is less than equal to 5% of the total capital, So only income from such investment is taxable. Taxable under section 13(1)(c). But other incomes are exempt. Section 11 का exemption. But if the amount invested is greater than 5%, so all these incomes will be taxable. Everything will be taxable. फिर कोई exemption नहीं मिलेगा.
सर वो 15% भी नहीं और अप्लाइड अमाउंट
कुछ भी नहीं,
वो
कुछ
भी
भी
नहीं.
Nothing contained in section 11 shall apply. मतलब 15% भी नहीं, standard exemption भी नहीं, application भी नहीं, कुछ भी नहीं, पूरा amount taxable.
ओके सर.
Okay.
सर
हाँ जी बोलो.
एग्जामिशन जब कैंसिल होगा तो दे हैव टू फर्स्ट गो टू गवर्नमेंट पे नोटिफिकेशन आएगा, उसके बाद ही चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट का ये असेसमेंट में जो दिया था डेट के चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट स्टेटस हटाने के लिए दे हैव टू फर्स्ट इंटीमेट गवर्नमेंट से नोटिफिकेशन आएगा, नोटिफिकेशन में ये लिखा होगा कि वो कैंसिल हो गया, फिर ही वो लोग
Go on, I'll let you finish.
हाँ असेसिंग ऑफिसर फिर ही एग्जामिशन मतलब विड्रॉ कर सकते हैं.
हाँ, so registration is not cancelled, exemption is withdrawn.
Okay, understood.
So this is only applicable for this financial year. Na? If next financial year similar things don't repeat, then exemption is still.
So exemption will be allowed. Exemption will be allowed. आगे बढ़ो.
हाँ सर.
हाँ
हाँ, अब सबसेक्शन 5 तो is not applicable, delete हो गया है, not applicable 1991 से. Subsection 6, notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1 and 2, but without prejudice to the provisions contained in subsection 2 of section 12, in case of a charitable or religious trust running an educational institution or a medical institution or a hospital, exemption under section 11 or 12 shall not be denied. Shall not be denied. मतलब exemption will be allowed in relation to any income other than the income referred to in subsection 2 of section 12 by reason only that such trust has provided educational or medical facilities to the persons referred to in clause A, B, C, C or D of subsection 3. I believe after reading this, the only thing that you observed is subsection 1, 2, A, B clause, matlab there is so much involved. See, there is a trust which is running a hospital, or say which is running an educational institution.
मतलब स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन को दिया तो डिसअलाउ होगा ऐसा नहीं है.
हाँ, if benefit of this hospital or if services from this hospital, services from this educational institution are provided to those specified persons that are specified under 13(3), then for the trust other incomes section 11 will apply, and as far as these services are concerned, they will be provided to the specified person, obviously at lower than market rate or free of cost. ये भी लिखा हुआ है, देखो. Point number D. If the services of the trust or institution are made available to any person referred to in subsection 3 during the previous year without adequate remuneration or other compensation. So what we are imagining is, okay, the trust is running a hospital or an educational institution, is providing this hospital or educational institution is providing services. So it must be provided either free of cost or it must be provided at much lower than the market rate. Now, other incomes, income derived by the trust other than the services wala income, they will be enjoying the exemption. As far as these services are concerned, you take the market value of these services, and this market value of services is treated as income. ये कहां पे लिखा है? ये सेक्शन 12 सबसेक्शन 2 में लिखा है. And this will be treated as taxable. That is, section 11 will not apply. ये लिखा है 13 subsection 6 में. What it means is कि you are giving educational or medical services and facilities to the specified persons, and you are undercharging them or not charging at all. So which is wrong. So I will consider that you have charged market value and that is your income. If it's your income, उस पे टैक्स भरना पड़ेगा. Then you cannot apply section 11 का exemption for it. But that does not mean कि just by providing educational or medical facilities to a specified person, it does not mean that every income का exemption should be snatched away. So section 11 will apply to other incomes, and for this income, assume that the market value was received by you, उसको income मान लो और उस पे टैक्स भर लो. जैसे यहाँ पे बोला था 13(4) में बोला था कि only income from that investment will be chargeable to tax, other incomes will remain exempt. Similarly, income by providing these services will be taxable, other incomes will remain exempt. But services can be provided at lower than market rate or at zero rate. So what amount should you take as taxable income? That is market value लेना पड़ेगा. ये section 12 subsection 2 में लिखा है. ये समझा? Subsection 7. This is very simple. 13(7) is saying if you receive anonymous donations and if they are taxable under section 115 BBC, then exemption under section 11 will not apply. The other side of the coin is possible that if section 115 BBC is not applicable, then it is possible that you can take exemption under section 11. One drafting पढ़ोगे ना तो easily clear हो जाएगा. Nothing contained in section 11 or 12 shall operate so as to exclude from the total income of the previous year of the person in receipt thereof any anonymous donation referred to in 115 BBC on which tax is payable in accordance with the provisions of that section. Now when we'll do 115 BBC, we'll observe that 115 BBC does not apply to every anonymous donation. What do I mean by anonymous donation? Anonymous donation is a donation where as a trust I do not maintain records of the person who donates. So I receive the donation, jo, you call it as Gupta Dan.
Oh.
That means I don't know the person who is donating. It is an unknown donation for me. So I don't know the name, the address, the permanent account number.
मैंने कोई मस्ती
मैं चुपचाप लिख रहा था, ये हंसना चालू किया.
Now you will observe कि 115 BBC ना is a tax rate वाला section. तो anonymous donation broadly speaking taxable है. Anonymous donation, let me be accurate. Anonymous donation income में तो include करना है. You have to take it into income. Now, at what rate should you pay tax? should you pay tax as per 115 BBC or should you pay tax as per regular tax rates? This depends on 115 BBC ka interpretation. And the clarification that we are making in 13.7 is that if anonymous donation gets covered by 115 BBC, you will be paying tax as per that section, तो कोई exemption नहीं मिलेगा. Due to any reason, if 115 BBC is not applicable, तो exemption मिल जाएगा. अब 13 subsection 8. 13 subsection 8 ऐसा बोलता है कि section 11 का exemption will not apply if charitable purpose का definition का proviso gets attracted. तो
सर एक मिनट, एक डाउट पूछूं सर?
हाँ बोलना
सर. ये जो एनोनिमस डोनेशन अगर हुआ तो मतलब पूरा का पूरा कुछ भी नहीं मिलेगा 11-12 का, या खाली वो डोनेशन के रिलेटेड नहीं मिलेगा?
नहीं, एनोनिमस डोनेशन का फॉर्मूला कुछ ऐसा है कि if 115 BBC applies ना, then the tax rate is 30%
on total,
on donation, on anonymous donation.
एनोनिमस डोनेशन मतलब सिर्फ वही, मतलब तो फिर बाकी चीजों के लिए तो मैं मतलब फिर मिलना चाहिए ना 11 और 12, ऐसा एग्जाम्पशन नहीं विड्रॉ करना चाहिए, क्योंकि जो चीज मैंने नहीं रखा उस पे तो आप ले रहे हो ना पूरा का पूरा डोनेशन.
पढ़ देख मैंने क्या लिखा. If taxable under section 115 BBC, exemption under section 11 is not applicable to anonymous donations. Otherwise, the exemption is applicable for anonymous donations.
ठीक.
अच्छा, if proviso to section 2 subsection 15 is attracted, then section 11 is not applicable. ये क्या है? ये देखो. Have you read this definition before? Okay. Mentally divide this definition like this. First paragraph. Charitable purpose includes relief of poor, education, yoga, medical relief, preservation of environment, preservation of monuments or places or objects, etc. One part. And second part, advancement of any other object of general public utility. So charitable purpose, acha, if this call gets disconnected, so I'll schedule up another call. I think I'd scheduled it up to 9 o'clock. So it's about to end. So I'll schedule up another call. Charitable purpose definition can be broken up as relief of poor, yoga, medical treatment, medical relief, education, preserving environment, preserving monuments. First part, these are specific activities. So it's a specific definition that these are specifically called as charitable activities, charitable purpose. Or general, advancement of any other object of general public utility. Object मतलब यहाँ पे objective. Advancement of that objective meaning to push that objective, to promote that objective, which is of general public utility. As a general public, it is useful. So any activity which has the objective of benefiting the general public, we are promoting that objective. Then that is also charitable purpose. ये main definition हुआ. Now, proviso says advancement of any other object of general public utility. मतलब the proviso does not apply to yoga, medical relief, education, preservation of wildlife, etc. Proviso is applicable only to that last part, the general definition. Advancement of any other object of general public utility shall not be a charitable purpose if it involves carrying on any activity in the nature of trade, commerce, business, or carrying on any activity of giving any service in relation to trade, commerce, manufacture for a cess, for a fee, or for a consideration, irrespective of the nature of use, application, or retention of the income, unless, let's first simplify the paragraph. If your charitable purpose is advancement of an objective of general public utility, then it will not be treated as a charitable purpose if you are carrying out business commercial activities and taking some income. unless and until point A, such commercial activity is undertaken in the course of actually carrying out such advancement of other object of general public utility. So they are related to each other. The objective that you want to promote and the commercial activity that you are doing, they are related to each other. Then you are allowed to do commercial activity. Second, the aggregate receipts from such activity or activities do not exceed 20% of the total receipts of the trust or institution. Meaning, to subsection 15, specific activities, there is a list. General public utility. The objective is to promote or advance this general public utility wala thing. Now, this will not be treated as a charitable purpose. If you are carrying on any business or commercial activity for a fee, unless that activity is directly connected to this objective and the fee that you are collecting is less than equal to 20% of your total receipts. Starts negatively. It is not treated as a charitable purpose unless these 2 points happen. Meaning, if these 2 points happen, it is treated as a charitable purpose, even if you are carrying out commercial activity. But if these 2 points do not happen, then it is not treated as a charitable purpose. So, commercial activities.
नहीं समझा last वाला part.
हाँ, एक second. Commercial activities give you a receipt of 60 lakhs. And other donations that you are getting are, say, 1 crore. So your total receipts 1 crore 60 lakhs. अब इसका 20% कैलकुलेट करो. ये 32 lakhs आया. Is your commercial receipt within the limit of 20%?
No.
No. Then your activity is not treated as charitable activity. And if it's not treated as charitable activity, it means proviso to section 215 got attracted. That means exemption under section 11 not allowed. अब दूसरा एग्जांपल, कमर्शियल एक्टिविटी का रिसीट्स 6 lakhs, अदर डोनेशंस 1 crore 54 lakhs, टोटल रिसीट्स 1 crore 60 lakhs, 20% के हिसाब से 32 lakhs. Is commercial receipt within 20%? Yes. then we will call your activity as charitable. Proviso is not attracted, and that means section 11 का exemption is allowed. देखो, objective of general public utility is not a charitable purpose. यहाँ से मेरा proviso start हुआ. Objective of general public utility is not a charitable purpose if you are involved in business activities and charging fee, unless and until you can prove that the business and commercial activity is in connection with that advancement of objective, and from the business commercial activity the amount that you are receiving is within 20% of the total receipts. If you look at example number 2, you will observe that all the charitable activity that I'm doing, a majority income is being derived via donations. If I am carrying out business, uska receipt from business is very nominal. So my major objective is to do charity by taking donations from public, and donation you don't know. So I'm running a business also, but business ka receipts are nominal, they are within 20%. But in the first example, from 1 crore 60 lakhs of total receipt, 60 lakh rupees to sirf business mein se aaya. That means I am pursuing business activities very actively. Now I cannot say कि भाई ये business activity में से जो आया वो charitable purpose के लिए use होगा, because now business is also as prominent as donations. Then exemption will not be allowed.
What does it mean when such activities undertaken in the course of actual carrying? वो first condition है 215 के proviso का.
ये you're doing a business commercial activity.
The activity and objective is related.
So you cannot say that business is of some other thing and the objective that you are promoting is some other thing. तो फिर 20% check करना ही नहीं आपको. तो even if the receipts are within 20%, still it is not treated as charitable. मतलब as a trust, if you are involved in business activity, it should be related to the business. It should be related to your objective. Then we will consider that business activity also as charitable, but you need to satisfy an additional condition that the receipts from business should be within 20%. Net profit का बात नहीं हो रहा है, receipts का बात हो रहा है.
So that means if I am say as having general public utility, मतलब register say as religious trust इसमें covered नहीं है, right? They have specific other objectives other than this. General public utility के लिए वो लोग काम नहीं करते, right?
Religious is not covered only. This is the definition of charitable purpose. पूरे income tax act में you will not find the definition of religious purpose, because it will not be possible in our country to define कि religious purpose के लिए क्या करोगे तो उसको religious माना जाएगा.
Right. So now other than these above mentioned, उसको छोड़ के कोई भी अगर charitable purpose रहा, say as blind के लिए है, just giving an example, something related to blind if I'm doing, and for that what kind of a business can I do in blind sector? Like I didn't get that point. Abhi say as I'm selling something or that is related to blind or something like that, like I'm asking that.
So if you are wanting to promote say training of blind persons, और वो training से related तुम business activity कर रहे हो.
So basically if my trust organizes some trainers and stuff for blinds and need collect some nominal fees from them.
अब if you read the chat, she is also given another example that women empowerment के लिए there are some trusts and they are providing cooking classes etc. And now this is being pursued as a business activity. And the thing is that from the business activity, whatever income we receive, we are going to use it for women empowerment only. So we are running cooking classes for the general public. We'll get income and then we'll use this income and help those women who need money. Now this business activity should be connected to your objective, and the receipts from business should be within 20%.
I'll just note down the example. Can I hold?
हाँ लिख ले 10 मिनट.
यूजुअली इस चैप्टर से कितने मार्क्स के क्वेश्चन आ जाते हैं?
Nowadays there is a regular question from this chapter, practical question. Last attempt, that is November 19, they had a question based on a charitable trust ceasing to be a charitable trust, and then how does income become taxable. That is section 115TD जो अपने group पे discussion हो रहा था. We'll be able to do that tomorrow. But prior to that November 19 attempt, in the past 3 to 4 attempts, charitable trust has a dedicated question. In fact, that's the reason we have to go so much in depth. I'm in the process of developing the whole charitable trust chapter into some type of a revision or some type of a summarized note, where I'll try to do it in a computation format and attach some columns, etc. I have something in mind. I'm in the process of preparing it. So reading it from the textbook first study is okay, but for quick revision, I'm in the process of preparing it. I'll share it on the group moment it's prepared.
The reason being because there are a lot of references of other sections in one subsection. So then again, getting that language.
You have to be very careful when you read. You have to flip back pages. Initially, it will happen. So I'll try to simplify it to the maximum extent I can. Achha.
Go ahead.
And section 13 subsection 9 says कि भाई 11 subsection 2 allows you to accumulate income for future usage. ये वाला for future application. But in order to take that exemption, you have to file that statement wherein you will explain how you are going to use this money on or before the due date of filing return, and you have to file a return within time limit. So for 11.2 to apply, that means exemption will be available if the statement is filed within the due date. Point 1. Point 2, the return of income is filed within the due date, which means if anything out of the two is filed belated, then exemption will not be allowed. So if I have to be a bit in depth for discussion, look at 11.2, page number 6. It's on the screen. मैं screen पे डाल रहा हूँ. Where 85% of the income is not applied and is not deemed to have been applied, but is accumulated or set apart for application to such purposes in India. Then such income which is so accumulated or set apart shall not be included in the total income, provided the following conditions are satisfied. 1. The person furnishes a statement in the prescribed form and in the prescribed manner for which the income is to be accumulated. The period should not exceed 5 years. The money that is so accumulated should be invested into those modes specified in subsection 5. And the statement referred to in clause A should be furnished on or before the due date specified under 139(1). So subsection 2 is telling you that if you do not spend the money and if you do not cover it under the deemed clause also, because you want to spend it in future, so we will give you an exemption today. It will not be included in the total income. But for that, what you have to do is submit a statement, tell the assessing officer what is the purpose, why are you accumulating it. The period of accumulation has to be maximum 5 years only. During that period, you have to invest it into those places. And this statement has to be submitted on or before the due date. So income आया year number 1 में. So when you file a return of income for year number 1, वो जो due date है आपका, before the due date you have to submit the statement also. Now if you don't submit the statement, 13 subsection 9 is telling you that nothing contained in 11.2 will apply if you don't submit the statement on or before the due date. And if you file a belated return, don't file a return within the time limit, तो भी 11.2 का exemption is not available. मतलब if I quickly summarize section 13, the heading of section 13 is section 11 not to apply in certain cases. If you use the money for private religious purposes, exemption is not allowed. If you do not invest the money in those specified modes, 11 subsection 5 wala modes, exemption is not allowed. If you use the money for the benefit of those specified persons, exemption is not allowed. If you provide some specific services from a hospital or a medical institution to those specified persons, then the market value of those services is taxable, but other incomes continue to be exempt. If you do certain selected transactions where remuneration is not adequate, amount is more than market value, amount is less than market value, things are given free of cost to those specified persons, then it will be deemed that the income is used for their benefit and exemption will not be allowed. If anonymous donations are covered under 115 BBC, then section 11 exemptions will not be allowed. If you have as a trust invested money into a concern where the specified person has substantial interest, but your investment is less than or equal to 5% of the total capital, then only the income from that investment will be chargeable to tax. Other incomes will continue to remain exempt under section 11. If you get attracted by the proviso to subsection, the proviso to the definition of charitable purpose, then section 11 exemption is not applicable. If you do not file the statement of accumulating income on or before the due date, section 11 exemption will not apply. If you file a belated return, then section 11 exemption will not apply. ये तुम्हारा पूरा section 13 का summary था. पक्का समझ पड़ा? अभी clear? Okay, चलो. We'll continue tomorrow. 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Is it fine?
सर ये केस लॉस
पढ़ ले, easy है, but I would suggest that you read the case laws after reading the section.
हाँ ठीक है.
Because case laws में भी वो section का reference है. जैसे एक case law है, वो जो standard exemption है 15%. Do you need to accumulate that income and then you get an exemption? Yeah, it's a standard exemption. So that case law says no, it's a standard exemption. Tomorrow 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. If you have some inconvenience for the time, तो you let me know. Group पे डाल देना. And हाँ, जो doubts है, ऋषभ के doubts तो I have. Other people, if you can find some time and कोलेट ऑल द डाउट्स, तो डाउट सॉल्विंग 1-2 दिन में कर लेंगे, दैट विल बी वेरी इजी अगर डाउट्स पहले से भेज दो तो।
नहीं सर, मेरे और भी डाउट्स है, लेकिन अभी सर कल वो टाइप करने को ना सर बहुत टाइम जाता है।
अच्छा ठीक है,
तो ऐसे कॉल पे डिस्कस कर ले क्या सर?
चलेगा चलेगा, डन डन, ओके
हाँ,
ओके गाइस, चलो बाय बाय।
बाय सर, गुड नाइट।